curious to see what your take is on keeping people's attention, especially like in relationships. And we do so much to level up, look our best, make more money, appear more successful. But what happens when you get that person's attention and then it quickly fizzles out?
Getting someone's attention actually isn't that difficult. I think that, especially, our first way that we judge is with our eyes. If we want to, go for the attention of someone, is that person physically attractive to me? And we can say that we don't judge books by their cover, but we do.
And you know about that. You Mr. 100 covers.
Yeah. Actually,
novels.
since the last time, I've gotten a lot more since then. So,
how many covers are you up to now?
I'm up to 132 as of yesterday. So,
Jeez.
yeah. So we're making headway. But for real though, like we all judge with our eyes. We judge a book by its cover at first, and that's just to get us to open the book. Once you've opened the book, that's when you then decide if you want to keep reading the book or if you're like, oh no, screw that, I'm going to put it back on the shelf, right? And so maintaining attention is the inside of that book. Do you have a good heart? Are you, mind, body, soul? That's where you connect. Because the body and the physical appearance is your first level of connection. The other two are usually, your heart and here. If you can make those connections and you get all three, you check all three boxes, that person's going to want to stay in your life. You're not going to need to do anything that feels like work to keep them there. And that's the thing, is like once it feels like work, that's when it's not, really the person you should be with anyways.
I think we do a lot to work on the outside, and that first impression matters a lot. But a lot of the times it's kind of underrated what's in your mind that actually keeps the person with you. And the worst is like you see a beautiful woman and you start talking to her, and like 3 minutes in it's like there's nothing up here and you can't continue that conversation. But I feel like with guys lately, I see a lot of things online about how to look more attractive or how to like look more successful or like get her to pay attention to you. But we're missing the actual hard part of you gotta have character, bro. Like, you need to have something to say. You need to have a purpose. Like, what the hell are you doing with your life? Otherwise, you can watch how many videos you want and look hotter or look better, get better clothes. But then at the end of the day, when you open your mouth and you're talking to a woman, like, how are you gonna keep her?
Yeah, and it goes back to what we talked about last time. Confidence. Confidence is such a missing piece in a lot of society these days. So many people are so insecure, they're jealous, they're not confident in their appearance or their actual character. And a lot of confidence is derived from knowing who the fuck you are.
And I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you just need more time. Like as a guy, because I remember I used to be like a nerd little kid, super skinny, would not hit the gym. And I just didn't have that in me. It took time, at least in my experience.
And do you have like a pivotal moment that you can think of that it started to shift for you, where you became confident?
I think it was a phase. It wasn't one single moment. It was a phase around 2016. I started working out. I was in college and I took this class about wellness that it was a requirement, you had to take it. So, they taught us about reading labels, a little bit more about nutrition, how your body works. It was a mix of like biology with nutrition and well-being. One of those bullshit classes that you're like, what the fuck do I need to take this class for?
Yeah.
And actually with that class, it made me curious about all of this, and then I learned how to build muscle. For me, because I'm a more intellectual person, it came through the knowledge of, if you eat more and then you force your body to train, then your body will respond. Because I always thought that it was more a genetic thing, and it was very tied into identity for me.
Right.
So I grew up in Cuba. We didn't have a lot of food, so I was very skinny all of my life growing up. Mm-hmm. I played sports and I was okay, but I was really good with computers, cameras, like all of that. That's where I found my identity, and I was good. So it was never physical for me.
Right.
And it was a phase where I saw that and I started learning how to do that. So it took me several years of training and working out. And some people I remember one time I posted this picture. I was, you're a model, you're used to doing all this. For me, I'm the guy behind the camera. Mm-hmm. I'm not used to putting myself out there. So I remember I did a photo shoot with my friend Abraham. We just went to the beach and we took some pictures. And dude, seeing that, I was so fucking proud because I looked jacked.
Yeah.
And I posted a picture, and I remember a random girl from my high school back in Cuba posted something saying, "Oh, wow, you have grown into a man," or some shit like that.
Right.
And for me, that's what happened. It wasn't a quick shift.
Yeah.
It was a long build-up.
It was a slow burn to get to that point, but you brought up a good point. You weren't seeking external validation from other people to know that you were jacked or ripped or handsome or whatever, but actually getting in front of a camera sometimes and letting yourself just flow and be and exist when you feel confident about yourself. That is a very and maybe that's why I am so confident. I don't know, but I find that when you're in those positions where you can just actually the focus is on you because you've done the work to get to that point. It's a very beautiful thing to then be okay, I can get in front of a camera and be ready to go whenever. And so doing that for you was probably really beneficial. But you also touched on something else, which was you're intellectual, you're smart, and brains are really attractive, especially when they come out of someone that they don't expect to have brains. Everyone just sees a photo of me, they're like, guy must be dumb as rocks. and I love when I can, kind of prove them wrong. That actually gives me confidence to know that I'm going to alter someone's opinion of me very quickly.
Do you kind of play with that where you're super handsome, you start some kind of interaction with a woman, and you're probably thinking, you must think I'm hollow and full of shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then it's almost what you're made of, and that the moment you start talking to her, it's gonna be
Yeah, it's being. I don't know, because I asked you if you can find a pivotal moment that this happened for you where you shifted. For me, I don't know where that moment happened, or if it was just a build where I became so confident in just knowing that I was going to be okay with any situation in any place that I was going to be. I traveled all over the world. Maybe that's what it was. It was getting put in these really different environments and becoming confident in my abilities to, go through a culture, make sure that I was safe, enjoy life, all that stuff. And then that has then transpired into me being able to walk up to any person that I talk to and be confident, be charismatic, not worry about what I look like while I'm talking to them, right? Because we have these things in our head where a lot of times you'll be talking to someone, and it could even be between us right now, and you think, what am I doing with my hands? I wonder if my hair's okay. I wonder if do I have food in my beard? And you start thinking about all this stuff, and then oh shit, I'm talking to someone, and I think a lot of people, because that they're more, I don't want to say insecure with themselves, but they're so focused on what their appearance is, they lose that ability to actually be able to connect with someone. And the connection is where the good stuff is. And being intellectual and being able to have deep conversations that you don't have with every person that exists out there. Every person, you can have the same surface level bullshit conversation, and the thing that makes you stand out, the thing that makes you get attention and keep it, is actually being able to go to those deeper levels with someone.
100% I agree with that. Especially small talk. I hate small talk.
It's crap.
Just go straight to the actual thing that you want to say, or ask the question that you actually want to know the answer to. It just saves everyone's time. I really like that you mentioned about traveling. I grew up outside of the US, and I can tell that my point of view and perspective about everything changes dramatically because I didn't grow up here. Mm-hmm. And I have visited a bunch of different countries. I've been to Europe, France, I've been to Africa, to film projects. I've been all over the US. I think that's one of the single most radical things a young man can do, especially when you're young in your early 20s. Find a way to travel outside of your comfort zone, whatever that is. Travel outside of those areas where you grew up. And like you said, just the fact that you can stay safe, get your surroundings and enjoy what you have there, when you come back, you're so ahead from everyone else.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And how did that give you a different perspective? Like in your case, you're from Boston, now you live here in LA, but you travel everywhere.
Yeah.
What do you see as the most interesting thing when you return to LA and you have to be around all of the people that we will call hollow?
Yeah.
Like I feel like everyone who doesn't live here in LA thinks that everyone in LA is just hollow and like full of bad people.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see different, like when you go out and then you come back? What happens like with those interactions and with the people that you now are around?
I talked about confidence and that stemming from who you are. I'm very self-aware of the energy that I give off and the ability that I have to impact someone's life and connect with someone. I find that the most shallow, hollow person and then the most like enlightened person, I feel like I can actually connect with both sides of that and everyone in between. And again, that's a confidence thing. So when I am out there traveling, I find these little ways to have my energy mirror the person that I'm speaking with. So that's one part of that answer, is that I'm aware of what I have. So that makes me able to connect with other people's energy more. But a second part of it, and this I think is actually even more important, is we talked about travel. We live such comfortable lives right now. Everyone is so comfortable that you can program your entire day to be at home. You never have to get up from your couch. You never have to go talk to a single person or touch another person or whatever, right? Our lives are very comfortable. Traveling and going to places that you don't know, going to be with people that you don't know, is uncomfortable. It is not easy, because you have to be, confident enough in your skills to be able to go do that. And so for me, when I did start traveling at a young age, I pretty much traveled from 20 to, I'm 29, I just turned 29, so, but I haven't stopped traveling, but from 20 onward, I've been traveling nonstop, international, domestic, all that. And I know that no matter what environment I go to, even the most uncomfortable environment, I'm gonna be okay. I moved here 3.5 years ago I was in Northern California. I knew one person when I moved down here. Not like a close friend, not whatever, just someone that was an acquaintance who's become a great friend of mine. But that was the only person I knew when I moved here. I didn't know the streets. I didn't know how to make money out here. I didn't know anything. But I knew that I from all of this traveling, all of this worldly experience and this knowledge that I had gained, I knew that when I got here, I was going to be fucking great. And I have been. And I've been better than great. And it's because I had that self-belief. I had that understanding of who I am. And I knew that disrupting my comfort zone and coming to the most uncomfortable place, not knowing a single person, was going to make me grow. And it did.
So in what ways have you had to grow since you landed here? And if you came 3 years ago, that means you came around when the whole shutdown happened and all the work went away. What has been one or two things that you have had to actually I gotta level up and get this shit down, otherwise I'm not gonna make it?
Yeah, well, I got really good at knowing how to walk into a room of people that I didn't know and finding a way to connect with many people, or connect with one person who I knew would add value to my life and I would add value to theirs. And nowadays, right, so many people are so used to, you go to dinner, you go meet up with your friends, you go there. You don't have to talk to anyone else. You just go and you meet up with your friends. You go to a bar and you're going to meet up with your friends at the bar. How many times have you ever walked into a bar by yourself and seen if you can go make a connection with some complete stranger?
Yeah, very rarely.
Right? And that's actually something I started doing when I got here. I didn't know anyone, right? And when you walk onto a set, everyone is more of a friendly atmosphere because you're becoming work associates. But having the self-belief that you can go anywhere and make a connection or talk to someone or whatever, that is worth its weight in gold, because so much of our life these days it's not connected. It's not you don't have to leave your room. You don't have to talk to anyone that you don't want to talk to. And what that does for your mental state, for your consciousness, it makes you then very antisocial, which is going to hold you back. And so one of the main things that I grew with is I went from, not to say I was struggling before to do that, but I went from being like middle of the field at talking to, doing that situation, to now I can go anywhere in Los Angeles, no matter if I'm talking to, I don't know, Bill Gates, or I'm talking to someone who is, homeless on the street, and I feel like I can actually make a connection with that person.
Yeah, I feel like that's a skill that is very underrated, especially for young men. Dude, like, you can tell, like, I can be in a room, and just by looking around, you can look at a guy, and you know whether he has the character to go up to another man and have a conversation or not. Mm-hmm. I remember one time we went to a dinner with some of my very close friends. We got invited to this dinner, and it was like a group of guys that we didn't know.
Yeah.
Eric, we walk in, and we knew that one guy. We talk to him, all that. We sit down, we have dinner. Afterwards, we all start like, oh, this is my friend so-and-so and so-and-so.
Yeah.
Dude, I remember this guy gave us a handshake. It was like butter. It was like something. It was
just like, a little tap.
And it was a big, imposing guy.
Yeah.
Weak handshake.
Yeah.
Like immediately, it's like I felt not only that I did not want to talk to that guy, I almost felt like, what am I doing here? Mm-hmm. And it's something that I hope younger guys learn and practice. And I think a lot of it has to do with having other strong men around you.
Yeah. Because
we hear so much of this message of not being toxic, masculine, or being so masculine. Yeah. And I think that's a huge mistake. For us, for my brother and I growing up, my dad made sure that we were like tough.
Yeah.
Like that whole thing of like, boys don't cry, get up and do it. Like all of that, you need it.
Yeah.
And initially, like when you're a kid, it might feel like, oh, why is my dad so tough? But now I'm so happy that my dad was like hardcore like that.
Yeah.
And I think men have a lack of strong men in their lives.
Yeah. I mean, have you heard the idealism, hard times create hard men create soft times create soft men, and soft men create hard times. Yeah. And we're right now, I think, between 3 and 4. We're at that soft men creating hard times area, because men are afraid to be men now, and we're actually disencouraged to be men. And it's a really scary thing. And I hope that we're able to, because the younger generation is the one who's going to, really pivot that, right? Like that's where it's going to change, and we'll see how it goes. But I hope that men learn to walk up to a girl they like at a bar and say hi, as opposed to having to resort to texting them on an app on their phone and being like, yep, this is how I'm going to connect with someone. Like I just did this podcast series with one of my exes, and her and I are amazing friends, and we're,
which I want to come back to that.
We'll come back to this.
To me, that's
we'll hold that strange. One. Yeah. So and she had me come on to talk to a man who is very self-assured of himself. He's confident and all that stuff, and can talk about that. And she was like, how was dating apps and stuff like that go for you? I was like, it doesn't. I was like, I downloaded a dating app like twice in my life and deleted it like, a couple weeks later. And the reason why is because that's not who I am. That feels like such a passive way of actually creating a spark with someone. Yeah. Versus when you have that in-person interaction where you have a connection and there's a physicality to it, there is a body language to it, there is an aroma to it, there is pheromones, there's all these things. That's where the good shit is.
Like it was intended to be.
Yeah, exactly. That's where the good stuff is. Not in the weird, like, hey, I think you're hot on here, but I actually don't know what you look like in person, and I like these things that you list as your resume for dating. So
but they're probably not you.
No, they're probably not you. It's like your best shit, So like the first 3 months of your dating, right? You're giving your best resume. You're like, I am so good at this. I'm good at this. This is my best. It's like, that's not real. I mean, and then
Yeah.
I don't know. That blows my mind. But again, that goes to where we are. Soft men right now are not aggressive or assertive enough to walk up to a girl or a guy that they like at a bar and say, "Hey, you're cute. Let me buy you a drink." Or, "Hey, you're cute. Let's talk." Whatever. You know, it's so simple.
Yeah, with dating apps, I honestly have no experience. I was married for a very long time, and then when I got separated, I didn't want to. I never had a dating app. I've seen my friends use them, and me personally, I have mixed opinions about it because I agree with everything that you just said. Then my computer brain kicks in, and I'm like, it's the perfect tool to narrow down all the categories and things that you're looking for. If you're specific and you know what you want, it's like amazing that you can do that. But at the same time, is everything you just said, people putting up a facade and trying to do this. And I think our conversation about attention goes to that very well, because how do you capture someone's attention when they have
a billion options?
Yes.
Yeah, and and that's the thing is, do you really want that person's attention? Like,
you probably want the idea of the person that you think they are. You want their attention.
Yeah, and then you haven't even met them yet. You haven't, you haven't even met yourself yet in some cases. So many people haven't met themselves. They never actually have shook hands with themselves and actually went internal to figure out who the fuck they are. But then they're out here trying to, find love and all that stuff, and they don't even love themselves. And that's a big core problem.
Yeah.
So, but, and on top of it, like you said, you can narrow your search results down. You're putting out a casting call pretty much for your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And you're deciding, exactly what you want. You're creating this perfect box, and guess what? That perfect person is actually the one who's imperfect for you, and it's usually not the person that you find that way. But I know there's plenty of people that have met that way and are happily married and happily with that person, so I'm not taking anything away from them, but I do think it's not for the masses, even though the masses are the ones that are going to it right now.
For sure. No, I 100% agree with that. And you were mentioning that you went and did this podcast with your ex.
Yes.
So my experience with that side of my life has been terrible. So I was very surprised last time when you came on the show and we talked, and then I was like, dude, let me ask you like the real shit that I want
stuff.
to what I want to really ask you, because our conversation before was very interesting and I kind of forgot about all these things that I wanted to ask you about. But I definitely wanted to know your take on you're a super handsome guy, super popular, so you can have your pick of like whatever person you want to be with. So I bet that with that comes this blessing and also this curse of maybe you have multiple people that you have been with, and how do you handle with the aftermath after a relationship comes to an end?
Yeah, that is something that I am actually very passionate about. Is if you truly love someone, you do not need to remove them from your life. You don't have to think poorly of them. You don't have to have a bad relationship after you're done dating. And I think, I'm not coming at you with this, but I think that your relationship with the exes that you've loved says a lot about you and your partner or your ex-partner. So it says a lot about your character. And what I mean by that is I've been very lucky in my life. I've fallen in love 3 times, and I'm 29. And these aren't just like a high school love or I was in a 4+ year relationship and I thought I loved someone and I found out afterwards that I didn't. And these are like actual loves of people that will be in your life forever, that you just genuinely want the best for, and they want the best for you, and those are the 3 people that I fell in love with, and each of them knows that. I have an amazing relationship with each of them, and I still even say I love you to them when I talk to them on the phone or I see them in person.
Yeah, I think you have been very lucky to have that. That is not
very lucky,
the average or the common, because I used to think like that.
Yeah.
When I was married, whenever I thought about if this ever ended, it would be like just like that.
Yeah.
That's what I really wanted for me.
Yeah.
But I think there's different circumstances for everyone. and especially
complications,
when
kids, all that changes
yes.
it. Yeah.
So when people get hurt on either side, then you see a whole different version of that person.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone could have that approach and be lucky like you. In my experience, it has been very different. I wish that no one has to go ever through that. And if anyone has to face that it turns out the way that you're experiencing it. Because I think that's the best way that we could all live life. At the end of the day, we all want everyone to be happy and have their own version of their happy life, Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't want those people to suffer.
Yeah.
But I also don't want them in my life.
Mm-hmm. Which is perfectly fair. You can set boundaries. Not everyone is supposed to be in your life forever. In the current role that they're in. I don't think that, no one is permanent. And, or the only permanent thing that exists in your life is you. And so that's a big part of it. But the other part of it is, each person that I've loved, there's this X factor understanding. And that's why you said I am very lucky to have experienced that. I wish that everyone could experience that feeling. It was just my birthday last week, and I was celebrating my birthday down in San Diego, and I was with a different ex, and we were just down there enjoying life, and we're talking with other people that we were with down there about this exact thing. We were talking. They're like, so you guys love each other, and we're like, yeah, I still love her, she still loves me. We want each other's lives to be better, if that, the best that it could possibly be, no matter if that is directly from me or if that is from me cheering on the sidelines or cheering far away from the stadium and clapping for her in silence.
That's beautiful, man.
And that's what love is to me. Love isn't a possessive, restrictive thing. So many, and this is actually one thing that I talked about with my other ex who had me on, let's say that you were dating a girl, and let's say that she was not okay with you talking to other women. How restrictive of a life would that be? Let's say you couldn't even look at another girl. And this is actually a lot of true things that happen in these streets of Hollywood. This is a very common toxic thing that I see in relationships where there's so much miscommunication, there's so much jealousy, that it's you can't go live your life, and you're going to have to, I can only love you in the confines of you not talking to other women, not looking at other women, not living your life. And that's a restrictive life. You're not going to be your best version of yourself. You might meet someone tomorrow that just because of their genitalia, you can't talk to them, right? And they could be life-changing for you, but you're never going to know because you couldn't do it.
Yeah, I think that's crazy talk. And if you're in a relationship where people feel that way, you need to be careful, because that's a big red flag. It has happened to me, where I'm not going to stop being who I am just so I don't trigger whatever you haven't dealt with. But at the same time, you have to be, I guess, aware of what that person, your partner's trauma or past experiences has been, so then you can act accordingly.
Right.
I don't think it's a healthy thing to allow that to go on forever, but it's a smart thing to understand, wait, if that person feels like that, it has to be, there's a backstory to that character in that movie. That maybe we don't know about. But I want to be in a relationship that I can be myself, and the person knows that I love them and there's nothing to worry about.
Exactly.
If you don't have that, then
you have nothing.
Yeah, it's carrying a big bag of bricks, and going up the steps of it's already hard to get along with someone and find love, and you're lucky that you have found love so many times.
I got lucky.
I'm lucky that I've found love so many times in my life.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing that I learned after I got divorced is, life is not going to end. You're going to find another love in your life. You're going to be a different person. Things are not always like the movie that you have in your head, like the script that you wrote for your life. I think that the more you pursue that script and you want to make that the thing, you're going to miss out on all the other beautiful things that will come to your life when you least expect it.
Yeah.
So with that sense of freedom, what have you experienced, like on the good side of it? Like we talked about people not wanting you to talk or this or that. I don't want to live that life. I'm pretty sure you don't want to live that life. What do you see on the other side of that when you can accept freedom and give freedom to the person that you're with?
Yeah, it's like the old, proverb or whatever. If you have a bird, don't squeeze it too tight, don't strangle it, don't suffocate it. You hold it very gently and let it come and go. And a bird isn't supposed to live inside of a cage for its entire life. If you really love the bird, you're gonna open the door and give the bird the free will, the choice to go experience the world, to go meet other birds, to go eat different bird foods, right? And go actually live. And then if it actually, really, really loves you, it'll come back because you're home. That you're that person's home. And the bird doesn't want to be out just sleeping in random different branches every night. They want to go back to the person that makes them feel home. And that's, for me, that's how I view love. And I need that freedom and that trust from a partner because, and again, I know it's hard because a lot of people have been through trauma. They've been cheated on, and I've been cheated on, and I have that viewpoint, right? And so it's like that's it took a while to get here. I didn't just flip a switch and I was like, yep, I'm gonna live like this. This will be easy. I went through that, and then once I actually got that, and I had the freedom with someone to like, hey, go live your life tonight. Go meet as many people as you want. If you have a connection with someone, explore that connection with them. I'm not saying go sleep with every person that you have a connection with, but the number of people that you're going to miss out on in your life that could have been an important, amazing person in your life, if you didn't have that freedom, would be astronomical. And could you really live with that? Because I couldn't. At least that's how I live my life. I was at my friend Michael. He had a birthday party, surprise birthday party. It was his 40th. He had a birthday down here, and I was there, and I was probably one of the only guys that was there. It was mostly women that were there, and me. And you talk to a million people there, and then for me, like just like anywhere I go, I connect with one person usually, and that's like it's not a forced connection. It just happens. And me and this woman who's I think she was in like a 7 or 8 year relationship. We talked for about 2.5, 3 hours about life. We went deep diving into the rabbit holes of life and, spirituality and all of this stuff. And if she was in a possessive relationship or I was in a possessive relationship, we wouldn't have been able to have that conversation. And we wouldn't have been able to become friends. And now we're friends, right? And now she's a person that I have in my life to be able to cheer on. And she cheers me on, I cheer her on. And we have this cool connection now. But because if I was married or I was in a relationship with a person like, no, you can't talk to another girl, like that would have never happened. I would have been like, oh, it's so nice to meet you. Like I'm going to go sit over here and eat with someone else because I'm afraid of exploring this connection, right?
Yeah. Especially when you self-impose that censorship, where you imagine being in a relationship where you feel that you cannot do that, even if your partner is not there to tell you or be mad at you for doing that.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing that you are able to do that. What has been your experience here in LA specifically with that? Because again, and I feel like I keep coming back to this because I have so many people outside of LA that have a distorted view of the people who live here. And I'm passionate about Hollywood and movies and like our business and what we do. And I'm passionate about the people that I've met here because I feel like some of the most genuine, friendly, like loving, caring people that I've met in my life, I have met here in LA, like in the middle of the whatever Sin City or whatever people want to call it.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, you attract what you give off. So you are a genuine person. You are an intellectual person. You're a handsome guy. You're going to get in return, just from being you and being aware of your energy, you're going to attract those type of people to you. If a shallow person comes up to you, like you said, you're going to talk to him for 2 minutes, and then you're like, okay, like moving on, right? And you're going to steer through that. So for me, I've attracted some amazing fucking people that will be a part of my life, hopefully forever, but right now they're a big part of it, and that's because of who I am. So here, you can find a needle in a haystack, you can find that person, and I don't think it's even that hard. I think that, a lot of, you're not gonna gravitate towards, like for example, me, like we live here in Hollywood. I don't go to a lot of places that are filled with the people that I don't want to be around. I go to places like Rafi's, or I go to places like being on set with other creatives. Like that's actually where I thrive. I love being around that energy. Yeah. So like, that's why I said it doesn't feel like work to me. I'm there like just getting to actually experience other people that I want to experience. And that's actually where I've actually made most of my love connections. Like I said, I've fallen in love 3 times. One of them was on a commercial set. And another one was it was in the industry, and it was through my own little, assertive way of like seeing an opportunity and taking it. And it's like, that's the thing, is you attract those people, and you're gonna. I even went out on it wasn't a date. It was this weird little TV show thing I did. But anyways, I was talking to this group of girls actually, and one of them was like, "Oh, like you're like really happy," and she said that like it like took her off guard. She's like, "You're not like faking it. Like you're genuinely happy." And I was like, "Yeah," and she's like, "I don't know if I could be like around that." And it's like,
what?
Yeah, and it's because there's so many toxic people that like actually like drama.
So she said she didn't know if she could be around
someone who's so happy, and that's actually happened before as well.
That is so sad.
That is very sad. I mean, look where we live. We live in a place of sad smiles. It looks happy on the outside, but inside it's a very sad smile. And so when I heard that, I was like, that wasn't the first time I'd heard it, but when I heard it from a beautiful woman who I was like, this person probably wants to be around that. No, she didn't. She didn't want to be around someone who was extremely happy. And what that says about her is that she's really struggling inside, and she didn't know if she could live up to that energy expectation, which isn't an expectation, but it is a little, if you have one person who's up here vibrating up here, and you have one person who's vibrating down here, the chances that they meet in the middle somewhere, you're going to bring that person down, but I'm going to bring you up, and that's not healthy.
Yeah. That is so sad. But yeah, I know, I can see how that would happen here, because I have seen those sad smiles before.
Oh, everywhere. It's yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the book covers.
Yeah.
I was super proud. I saw the reel that you share where like you grab the book and you turn it around and it's like cover. I wanted to ask you specifically about seduction in the art of creating this like illusion. And now I'm coming from a purely professional, practical point of view. Because like I look at a lot of images, I love film. I'm always trying to think, okay, if I were to do that, how would I do it? If I need to create fear, what colors, what shadows, how would I do it? If I need to create, dude, the worst is you're watching a movie, the sexy scene comes on, and it's not sexy at all. And I'm like, why? Like I would do it so different.
Yeah.
So you have been around a lot of people shooting these covers, being in the covers. What's the process of creating the concept, picking the colors, the poses, the lighting, what have you seen over and over that works to create this image that creates desire?
Yeah, desire is a funny thing because a lot of desire is fantasy based. It is not even a realistic thing that's in your head. It's you imagining someone who you might never ever get. It's you imagining someone that you might have already had in a very different way. Doing book covers, when I'm looking at the camera lens of a book cover, I won't do the exact look, but when I'm looking at the...
No, give me the goods.
Something like that. I don't know. That was a half-assed approach. But when you're looking at the through the lens of a book cover photographer, 9 times out of 10, you're looking at the lens like you want to both fuck it and kill it. You want to kill the person on the other side and have sex with them.
It's very primal.
Very primal. It's very dangerously safe. It's very primal is probably the best way to put it, because I mean a lot of seduction, a lot of that world is fulfilling the actual desire of the person that you're with, or that you're trying to portray that to. Like you said, the worst part of a movie that has a sexy scene is watching it and it's not sexy. And the usual thing, both in movies and in life, that makes the thing so sexy is the build-up to that moment. It's not the pot boiling over and there's water spilling everywhere, which is the sex. It is the pot boiling, and then the tea kettle starts going, and you can see the water rising, and you're like, oh my god, it's gonna boil over, and you hold that moment. You hold those moments as long as you can, and then immediately it's like they just strum the fucking chord, and you're just like, and then that's when it happens. And it's the same thing in real life. I can think of a few amazing sexual moments in my life, and it wasn't just going. That's why foreplay is a thing. It wasn't just going from A to B, where you start clothed and then B, you're unclothed inside of each other. That's not sexy. That is rapid. That is no build up, whatever. The greatest moments that I've had in my life have been long builds up. They have been, this. It might have even been like a little fantasy thing, or it might have been something that one of you had fantasized about, or both of you had fantasized about, and it builds and builds and builds, and there is such a sexual tension in the energy in the room that you could cut it with a knife, and that's why they talk about that, and that's why when people just go from you watch a movie and they go from having one quick thing and then they're just hooking up in a bathroom, it's like it doesn't. You're like, well, what, we missed something here.
You haven't had the time to create that build up to get you to be aroused and get you to feel those feelings. Mm-hmm. So that's very interesting that you're talking about that. So in your case, you're a professional at creating that image that women desire. What would you tell a guy who is trying to get better at attraction and getting the women's attention, and maybe he already has the attention and he's trying to level up that a bit more? Let's get practical. Let's think about what can we teach this guy to improve his game, basically.
Okay. Figure out what your gift is. It's so simple. I know my gifts, my isms that I give off to, no matter if I'm in a romantic situation, a professional situation, a friendship situation. I know what I'm giving to those ships, and if you're trying to arouse someone, or you're trying to be better at the art of seduction and all that stuff, I think the biggest part of it is knowing who you are. What is your thing?
That is very true. And I'm gonna talk examples so people can maybe put. For me, it's words.
Words.
I'm fucking good with words.
Yeah.
I'm really good at it.
Yeah.
So it's something that I kind of discovered later in my life, in that sense, because I would see how other guys were terrible with the choice of words that they would use. And it's not only, it's the whole process. It's not only getting to the woman, it's the whole process. Words it would be my thing.
Words, okay. And for me, that's the thing is we can analyze this as much as we want. And this is just me coming from my perspective, my experience. I never had to think about it when it was with the right person. If it was with someone who was the wrong person, I actually thought about it more in my head, all right, what should I do? What should I whatever? When I was with the right person, not one thought went through my head of how can I make this hotter? How can how can I, get in there, quote unquote.
You get to be yourself.
Because I was just in myself. It's you're not in your mind anymore. You're in your heart. You're in your soul. That's what's guiding you at that point. And and that's the thing is words for you. You in the moment of you actually being in those experiences where you are being so great and selective with your words, you're not thinking about the fact that you're being so great and selective with your words. It's just flowing naturally, right? For me, it's actually usually, which is indicative that I'm good at book covers. For me, it's actually my body language and my eyes and my physical touch and my overall aura and essence, as opposed to me even saying a single word. One of the people that I fell in love with, we talked long before either of us ever opened our mouths, with our eyes, with how we viewed each other from across a bar, with how we, were playing with each other's energy. It was a little cat and mouse. It's a little, and it builds, right? And then it builds and builds and builds. Versus if I just ran over and started talking to her and was like, "Hey, how's it going?" Well, then you jumped the gun. So, yeah.
Dude, this has been super interesting. That we could be talking about this for a very long time, but I think I want you to come back some other time so we can keep this conversation. I think it's very interesting, and I wish more people talked about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I almost feel like women have more of this.
They do, because it's taboo for men to talk about this topic, to talk about men's mental health, to talk about men's sexual health, to talk about being a man, right? And it's kind of discouraging to see that, there's podcasts like Call Her Daddy and, all these things for women. Men, there isn't really and it doesn't have to be a podcast per se, but there isn't really a vehicle where men are empowered to learn about themselves. Men are more so empowered to, go to work, make money, X, Y, Z, provide, all that. But I think the biggest thing that actually makes all those other things easier and better is to actually do the homework and figure out who the heck you are first.
For me, it has helped a lot to get close to strong men that have helped me have these conversations and have someone to turn to and ask for advice and be vulnerable with. What has been your experience creating those friendships? I know you're really close with Jeff, and I want him to come on the podcast and talk about a lot of these same things. What do you think guys could do to find more of that?
Yeah, Jeff has been such a great, positive motivator for me, a friend, being there for someone when they need you. So like you said, surrounding yourself with people that lift you up, not tear you down or make you feel down even. That's the important thing. And for me, surrounding yourself doesn't have to just be an in-person thing. Now we're going backwards. So I'm such an in-person person. I am a walk up to you at a bar and say hi kind of person. But also the people that you surround yourselves with, these days it's not just in person, it's online. So if you're following people who are toxic, if you are consuming content from someone who is not empowering you to be a better version of yourself. We were talking before we started filming, we were talking about, Andrew Huberman and Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, Tom, it's like from Impact Theory, it's like all those people, you are choosing to surround yourself with their energy and their knowledge. So be selective in who you're actually learning from. And for me, I think that's been a big thing of who you do socially, but even more so in person when you're around people. 100%.
I'm in the content business. That's what I do. I work with Tom and at Impact Theory, and I listen to all of this content. But I also, I'm very selective with what I follow, and I try to spend less and less time on social media so it doesn't take my attention, because you just can't. It's a biological thing. You're wired to keep wanting to see more.
Yeah.
So there's nothing you can do about it. It's like food. If you keep eating bad foods, you're going to gain weight and it's going to mess up your body.
Yeah.
How do you put boundaries around that? You're a public figure. You have to grow your Instagram and your socials to be able to provide and make money.
Right.
Like, and I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
I have to do that for myself, and I get paid by other people to make content to grow theirs.
Right.
So how do you put boundaries around that, and how do you keep that? Do you compartmentalize it? How do you handle that?
So for me personally, I'm not a big consumer of content. Like the content that I actually, like, when I go on Instagram, for example, I usually post my stuff. I have my close friends that I follow their stuff. I support them, like their stuff, and then I try and get off. And I try not to be on there too much. And I really set boundaries at limiting my screen time at the time that I'm actually on my phone, because so much of my life is being on there. It's even using my camera to film my auditions or whatever, right? So I'm very selective in when I am on there, how I'm actually using the device. And that's a big part of it. But also, like, to flip it away from me, depression is a real thing, right? A lot of people these days are depressed. Now, some of that, I'm not a psychologist, so I'm just giving my personal opinion on this. I think a lot of depression is stemmed from people being on social media and constantly scrolling, environment hopping from one to the next. You're watching some girl in Bali walking on the beach, and the next you're watching someone, I don't know, like some panda, like in your environment hopping. And then you're comparing yourself to the people that you're on the app with. And if you're insecure or you're not secure of who you are, and you don't know who you are, you're going to be on there being like, oh, that girl or this guy, like I'm better than, and like it becomes this negative loop. And then if you do that for long enough, you end up developing these sleep disorders, and then you're not sleeping and you have insomnia. And then, then you become depressed because your brain chemistry is off. And so it's like a lot of like these deep-rooted depression issues are caused from the actions that you're making every day. And so for me, I'm not perfect. I'm human. I've never fallen into that trap, but I've noticed myself before being like, okay, I was on this app for an hour in a row. What did I get for being on this app and just going boom, boom, boom? Nothing usually. I got very little from it. So now, once I was aware of that, which there was a moment like that probably during the pandemic. I remember it was like April during the pandemic and the lockdown, and I was like, what the heck am I on? What am I doing right now? But it's because that was, what we all resorted to, was being on there. And then I started setting boundaries for myself, like, okay, don't be on here more than this or that, whatever. So
now I want to follow up with that because I agree with everything you said 100%. I also want people to see it as a tool. I think the fastest way to get out of that trap is by changing the way you use the app.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So in your case, in my case, we come on, we pose, we do a quick maintenance,
yep,
and we're out.
Yeah.
What could you recommend guys that they could do to, one, level up their look and their game and like what their page looks like?
Yeah.
And number two, how can they maybe use that to take advantage of that, to take it into business or relationships, or
right,
so they can actually make it a useful thing instead of a scrolling nightmare?
Yeah, to level up yourself, find out what your niche is. Find out what it is that you are wanting to portray. For me, I'm a model and an actor and a poet. And so for me, I usually have a blend of those things. It's usually pretty model heavy for my page. But that's what I do. I'm literally just portraying myself. So when I'm on there, that's what I'm doing. So for guys or men or women, that you want to go on there and you want to create and all that stuff, find out what your niche is, find out what you want to share. If you are an avid, book reader and you want to share the best books that you've read and all that stuff, make that what you share.
So make it one single thing, so it all filters into one or two categories.
A few categories, like I said, multi-dimensional. Mine's acting, modeling, poetry, and so those are my isms that build who I am. Like that's who I am as a person as well as all that.
But we're never gonna see like your food. Or like
maybe my story, but you're not gonna see my food on my page. You're not gonna you might see some workout content periodically on my page because that's a big part of what I do, and staying in shape and promoting health and fitness and stuff. But you're not gonna see I don't know what else do people. You're not gonna see me like on like an anime, like you know what I mean. Like and that's just because that's who I am. I'm giving a genuine representation of who I am, and that's the thing is a lot. This is like a tough topic because a lot of what is being shared out there by creators or by whoever is actually an ingenuine representation of who they are. Like I was actually just talking with this about this with a friend last night. You know how Pamela Anderson, she just had a documentary come out. I've never seen it, so I'm saying this, take this with a grain of salt. But apparently, I learned that she was actually extremely shy as a person, extremely shy. But when she was in front of the camera, and touching herself and being introspective and being sexual and all that, she actually felt alive and in control of her own body. And so if you took that into today's world, there could be a woman that feels alive when they're creating sexy content, when they're shooting in lingerie, when they are and I've experienced some of these women when they are in front of the camera, but then actually off the camera they're not a symbol of sex, they're not like I don't want to say it in a bad way, but they're not like this over hypersexualized person. They're actually just a very like kind, gentle soul that feels alive.
I think the challenge with that is your brain doesn't know the difference. So when you're following someone, or at least I can only speak as a guy because I'm a guy. When you're seeing this all the time, your brain is more actively thinking about sex than females are. We know that from all the research. And on top of that, you're stimulating yourself with that all the time. So then you go out and you think all the women are doing that. And I remember having a conversation with one of my close friends. And this was like through months of me trying to help him see that from my point of view as a creator, I understand that these women are putting out all of this content because they're trying to grow their page. So I was trying to help him understand that what you see there is not the average of all women in the world. So you have to almost, this goes to expectations and aspirations of like what type of woman you're gonna have in your life and all that. If you're following 100 of the most beautiful women on the planet and you are seeing the curation of their top best performing content, you have no space to survive that. You're going to feel like every woman should be like this, and I should have this type of women right now because that's all I see. And I think that goes back to what you were saying of comparing or feeling less. It's like, bro, it's like so many millions and billions of people in the world, and you're seeing the most beautiful women that exist. With the best lighting, best camera, best like
face tuned, body tuned, all that. That's not. It's not real.
Face tuned.
That's the thing. Is that's like a very toxic thing that's going on. Is everyone's tuning their shit, and it's like I've seen people that have professional photo shoots that are still tuning an edited photo from a person, their body too. And so then that's giving a horrible representation. You couldn't pay me to be a woman right now. That would suck to have to be your comparison of like what you're comparing yourself to isn't like not real person. You're comparing yourself to a caricature pretty much. And that's horrible. And also to the same point, we're talking about expectations and what we're exposing ourselves to, right? This is kind of a scary thing to think about. Think about young men right now. Young men have the most accessible ability to go to pornography, and that's like what they're viewing as sex right now. Is let's say that you started watching porn when you're 15 and you didn't have your first sexual experience until you were 21. And all you did from 15 to 21 is you watched hardcore porn on online. So you had to have 6 years that your view of sex is 2 other people doing either outrageous stuff or actually having a romantic thing. Most likely it's probably not that. It's usually the extreme that is driving you. So you're third party viewing that. So then by the time you actually have your first sexual experience, your brain is like, okay, it's going to be like this. It's going to be, the extreme of it with, I don't have to get into vivid details, but the extremes. Yeah. So then you're first person, you're finally the player in the game having that sexual experience, and it might be nothing like what you expected.
And it goes both ways, because women are also watching porn to see if they can learn or compare up to like what the guy. Because everyone knows that all the guys are watching porn.
Yeah.
And then I've heard girls who watch porn to see what the guy is like, so then they can learn and emulate what the guys are looking for.
And then you're like acting in bed, and it's so interesting as opposed to naturally doing what you do. So, and that's another thing is like, and this is TMI, but whatever. I like talked with this about to one of my best friends about this. Is I was like, I don't personally enjoy like masturbating by myself, like watching something, because once you've had a taste of the good stuff, of love, of a real sexual experience, that compared to the release that you get from that, there is no comparison. It's like driving a Ferrari at 150 miles per hour down a freeway and then driving like a 91 piece of shit Corolla that hasn't had an oil change in 4 years.
And 100% agree with you, dude. Even like this is also TMI, but I've tried the VR porn.
I've never experienced that. Not yet.
Dude,
is it wild?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
The first couple times.
Yeah.
And then you're like back to the same, because like having real sex is way better than just watching porn.
Yeah.
To me, I don't watch porn anymore. Whenever I've been in a period of my life that I consumed porn, it was because I wasn't happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
or like the small instance where like you're far away, like I travel to.
Yeah, you're in a
like
hotel room.
You're super horny
Yeah.
and but that wouldn't count for me. When I think about extended periods of time when I watch porn, it was because I wasn't happy.
A negative headspace.
Whatever, and it messes you up like completely.
Yeah, and I don't think it's like something that you should never do, right? Because I agree. I think that there's a time and place, but controlling your exposure to it, just like anything in moderation for the most part is not bad for you. And the thing is that it's so easily accessible, it's so readily available that if you are not in control and like, setting boundaries, just like with social media, you're going to overconsume it. You're going to screw up your brain wiring. You're going to have no idea what your actual arousal template is. You're going to think that your arousal template is, some person getting dominated, tied up in a leather straps and chains and stuff like that. But it actually could just be a real intimate experience with one person having missionary sex, you know what I mean? But if you're not careful, you can lose, that can fall off the wagon. And so that's a really big thing to be aware of, is figuring out, is limiting yourself. And also, like you said, the first time that you watched VR porn, you probably had a huge dopamine release because that was probably a crazy experience, right? Just like the first time you have, the most amazing sex you ever had in your life. It's a huge dopamine release. So your dopamine ceiling is now up here, but then also your dopamine floor has extended, and so you can actually go beyond, what you used to have high. That's the same thing of doing drugs. If you're doing ecstasy every weekend, the first time you do ecstasy, it's gonna be, but then after that, it's gonna slowly just be like. It becomes less. So yeah.
For me, the way I've been able to break those cycles is usually, for me, my experience has been focus on working on something. Mm-hmm. Some kind of project, some kind of goal. That is what I've used to get out of, like if you're in a rut and with social media, porn, I've seen it with my friends with alcohol. I don't drink, so alcohol has never been a problem for me. But that's another thing that I think for guys, especially when you're young and you're young, you don't quite know yet who you are. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You throw alcohol in the mix because you think it's going to make everything amazing. And listen, like getting a few drinks and getting a buzz is super fun. Like,
Yeah.
I've done that with my friends a few
Yeah.
times, and
Yeah.
I was like, Abraham, now I know why people want to drink all the
Yeah,
time, because
exactly.
this is super cool.
Yeah.
But if you do that all the time, it takes you out of balance. And in my experience, what has helped me stay centered is the movie I want to make. I want to make the podcast. I want to make this amount of money because I want to help my family with something. Like finding something to direct all those energies to.
It's so helpful. But if you don't have that, if you didn't have the movie to direct, if you worked some dead end 9-to-5 job where you were that you hated, what you were doing, you wouldn't want to leave the escape of having a few drinks. You would actually you would live for that experience. That's what you'd be searching for. So that goes back to why being a creative and why doing something that you love every day is such a healthy thing, because it then doesn't make you desire doing these tasks that are, for lack of a better term, pointless in a lot of cases. Again, I've had plenty of times that I've done drugs, I've had drinking alcohol in excess and all that stuff, and some of those experiences are really great, but how many of them are actually just a watered down version of who you are? A lot of them, and that's a sad thing. So all of this to say is moderation, setting limits, controls, and just knowing who you are. That's the important thing.
Well, Eric, thank you so much, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, buddy.
Always love the conversation.
Yeah.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I did. If you can, please share it with a friend and check out this other episode. I'm pretty sure you're going to like it. Until next one, we'll see you in another episode.